Should the KKK have freedom of speech? Should the woke leftists have the freedom of speech, right? People should be able to say what they want. But when does it cross that line, and who should be able to say when it crosses that line?
And sometimes the voice of truth is silenced and the voice of deception is allowed to speak.
No one wants everyone to say everything.
When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. Hi, welcome back to Gotta Be Me podcast. We're so happy to be here again with you today. We're your hosts. My name is Sophia Benyon, and this is my cousin, Peyton Benyon.
Welcome back to our channel, everybody. Don't excuse my laughing. We've tried to say hi, welcome back to Gotta Be Me like 10 times by now. Not really 10.
We haven't, though. I was like...
But a lot of times. Either way, what I wanted to say was, if you are new here, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You're so close to that subscribe button. Don't tell me we've gotten so lazy we can't just click that button.
We have.
That's all it takes.
Actually,
1 second.
It's hard to push buttons on phones.
1 second, you know, that's all it takes. I don't know, these preliminary statements, I should say.
We're matching.
We're matching. Evergreen.
We want this to be an evergreen podcast, so we said, wear our evergreen colored dresses.
That's funny. Anyways, I had a speech class this summer where I did a speech and I thought it was interesting, but maybe it's not. Sophia's not knowing if it's interesting or not.
Yes, it is interesting.
But
I think it's interesting. I did research. It was interesting.
Me too. I did. I gave a speech on freedom of speech. And as I was doing my research, I came across some things that were talking about cancel culture, and if cancel culture takes away, or what's the word? I don't want to think of the word the whole
Negates.
time. No. Infringes
cancels.
on our First Amendment rights. That's the word I was forgetting. Infringes on our First Amendment rights. I thought that was an interesting conversation because I did some polls and some surveys on my classmates, and I said, should the KKK have freedom of speech? Should the woke leftists have the freedom of speech, right? People should be able to say what they want. But when does it cross that line, and who should be able to say when it crosses that line? And the polls were pretty interesting. I think I ended up being pretty 50-50 on it.
Are you serious?
Yeah, because...
Hey, you never told me this story before.
I sent it out to all my classmates, and what's interesting is they were all like, no, the KKK and other terrorist groups should not have room to talk. And then I sent it out to our community, our church friends, and everyone was like, yes, they should. So I thought that was really interesting. I remember talking to Uncle Marcus about it, and he was like, yeah, well, if you're going to give freedom of speech, you got to give it all the way. And I just think there's got to be checks and balances to it. And I think the argument, everyone knows that. Like, that's reasonable. Like, we don't just go around, like, saying whatever. There's obviously got to be checks and balances. And a lot of times where the argument happens is who should be able to do it. But go ahead and read what the First Amendment actually says for us.
Okay, yeah, because I wrote it down because I thought it was so interesting. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of people peaceable to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
Okay, and then what's the definition of cancel culture?
Definition of cancel culture is a cultural phenomenon. I thought that was interesting. It's a phenomenon in which a individual deemed to have acted or spoken in an unacceptable manner is ostracized, boycotted, shunned, fired, or assaulted, often aided by social media.
Do you think cancel culture actually violates our First Amendment rights? What I think is I don't think it technically does.
Okay, why not?
Like, okay, if someone says, boo, you can't say that, you can't you can't rent this room to tell your jokes, whatever. Like, I mean, you technically can still speak. You just have, like, less people are listening. So, like, I mean, you still can talk.
So does cancel culture violate freedom of speech?
I don't think it technically does. I just think that you get to talk to less people.
I just think it gets iffy because, okay, you can't use this room to say your speech. Okay, there's always other rooms to rent. But what if, like, I mean, it becomes a cultural phenomenon. So if you're canceled by a whole culture, you are effectively shut down. If you're canceled off of YouTube,
but
Facebook,
I mean, you can
whatever,
go in your house and just talk to the wall and say it. I mean, like,
but you're still canceled. Like, that's still not freedom, I feel like.
Maybe it's not freedom, but I just feel like, I mean, like, cancel culture is definitely powerful. And I honestly think cancel culture can be a good thing when used in, like, certain contexts. I think it just depends on how it's used and who it's used by. Like, I absolutely think, like...
You want to know what?
What?
I think you could say the exact same thing about freedom of speech.
Well, of course I think freedom of speech is good. We're here talking.
It can be good.
Oh, true.
I don't think it's always... I think in as much as cancel culture is not always good, freedom of speech is not always good.
Yeah.
Like, back to your point, should the KKK have freedom of speech? Well, I mean, and then we start getting into
Yeah.
hate speech, which is
Yeah.
obviously not okay.
Yeah.
But again, who gets to define that?
Who gets to define
draw
that,
those
right?
lines?
I think that's generally where the argument lies because no one wants everyone to say everything. Nobody really
that's
does.
good. No one wants everyone to say everything.
And people, well, then that goes into censorship. Like, should censorship happen? What?
Look at the camera.
Oh. Should censorship happen? Because I know sometimes people get upset about that. Like, I can't look at it. It's fine.
Okay, should censorship happen?
I think censorship should well, like, if you own something, right? Like, I read something that said, like, digital infrastructures, like, control a lot of what people are allowed to say. And I think, like, I mean, if it's your thing, it's your thing. It's your platform. If you don't want someone to
you
say
should be able
something,
to
then,
say that on
well,
your platform.
apparently you got to go somewhere else and say it.
But what if what if the wrong person owns or controls a platform? That's when it becomes a problem, right?
It's all about the person.
So when me and Peyton were talking about this, Peyton was like, I want to talk about this. And I was like, well, okay, I want to talk about this, but I don't want to get on there and say something random. Like, I want to have a prophetic perspective. And so Peyton was like, talk to some prophets. I was like, okay. So we're blessed to know some prophets. So I contacted some friends of mine who are prophets, thank God. And I literally just asked them, I said, what's your prophetic perspective on cancel culture? Because, you know, I mean, there's a debate about it. People have different opinions. And I thought some of the things that they told me were so good. And again, they basically said that, like, it can be good and it can be bad. One of my friends said, cancel culture is an attempt to reconcile what can only be judged by angels on the shore. So there's a lot of references to angels on the shore. Like, if you don't know the Bible, that won't make sense.
47.
But in Matthew 13:47, it's talking about angels that sit on the shore. They pull in things out of the sea, which we would understand to be the world, and they sort it. This is good. This is bad.
Into the
this
bad
is good.
vessel.
This is bad. And angel, we would understand to mean messenger. It can be a heavenly messenger. Doesn't always necessarily
Or
mean
a
that.
terrestrial
So
one.
someone that's a messenger, a preacher, an apostle, a prophet, someone in a place of authority that has that ability to say, this is good, this is not. This should be canceled, this shouldn't. These people should be able to speak. This is where, and this is why, who, and where.
Yeah,
should
and
be
they
quiet.
have that complete view because they're looking over everything.
Right.
And then sometimes I think the people should have a say in it, and sometimes I don't. Because, like, honestly, if you think, right, like, I think ultimately the person who should have the last say should be that
angel.
apostle or that right, that angel that's sitting on the shore. But I mean, like, think about it. If you're in the real world and someone really wants to start a singing career, they start singing and no one listens to them.
That's
no
the
one at all.
world. That's everybody having a say.
That's everyone.
Or having no,
And,
like, saying
I'm
nothing.
sorry, I can't tell you anything. You need a new job. Okay, it's just true. Like,
that's-
I'm not
and
saying
that's
you can't
human.
sing,
I feel like that's a part
but
of
just, like,
nature.
when everyone says something, it's just kind of it's low-key true. Like, I mean, everyone, no one's listening to you. So
Right. Like,
you need
if
to go
most
somewhere
people,
else.
so culture's become warped, I think. But culture in its pure, God created form can, make some of those decisions in the right context and under the leadership of the correct.
What I think is, like, kind of wrong about cancel culture, like, if cancel culture had a brother keeping spirit.
Okay, I was hoping you were
Like,
going to talk about this.
If it had a brother keeping spirit, like, hey, yo, you can't just go around saying the N word. Like,
if
that's
you were trying to-
disrespectful. We're not gonna say that.
Right.
You can't be in a place of authority if you're thinking in that fashion.
Right.
So as your brothers, we're gonna go ahead and sit you down until you figure out what's going
on. Like, if
You
you're
know?
trying to help that
And then-
person not damage themselves or
Right.
damage others,
and they
then
can be restored. They can be restored. You can come back. We know you have a
uncancel them.
gift. Like, we know you have a gift, but you cannot talk right now because you are not saying things that are good.
be said.
But if cancel culture has this fleshly spirit of brother hating, and just eat and
slandering
devour,
and
I feel like a lot of times
knocking
that's what
people down.
cancel culture has. Like, I think the concept of it is like, yeah, I mean, if you
Can
said
be
something
used
that
in the
you
right-
shouldn't say, like, you can't be out here in a place to influence people. You just can't.
Right,
And
right.
that concept is not wrong. What's the verse they said about Paul stopping the?
Paul says, I wrote it down because one of the prophet brothers mentioned it. He said there are many unruly and vain talkers whose mouths must be stopped.
Yeah, their mouths must be
But
stopped.
Paul could say that
Right.
because Paul was in that place of authority to discern, okay, they need to be quiet.
Right.
Not everybody knows who should be quiet. And there's people running around, you should be, cancel them and sometimes the voice of truth is silenced and the voice of deception is allowed to speak.
Yes.
And that's why cancel culture is dangerous.
It is.
It's dangerous.
I agree. So it can be good, it can be bad. It just depends in whose hands it is.
One of the prophets said to me, cancel culture will invariably be abused by the system. Just like the system tries to appropriate everything, good concepts, and abuses them, cancel culture is another thing that the system will appropriate and will use to hurt people and to stop the truth and to confuse people.
And I mean, the government we have is never going to get it straight. It's not godly. It's never going to get it straight.
And again, we're not hating on America. We're glad we live here.
Yeah.
But we have to acknowledge that
it ain't. You can't even work inside of it, and it's just corrupt from the inside out. And I think the court makes the rulings on what is allowed to be said and what is not, because like there are certain things within freedom of speech that you can't do, like you can't incite a riot, right? But then court gets to decide if you incited a riot or not.
Right.
And
you can't be treasonous.
Yeah.
Against the government says you can't be treasonous against the government. Well, that can become, and I don't believe in treason. Like, come on. But yeah, I mean, I just think, freedom of speech can be, and then, okay, so freedom of speech can be dangerous too for the exact same reason that cancel culture can be, because if we're just saying everybody can say everything, then you have people who have a platform, who have hundreds of thousands of followers that should never be followed, never be listened to, never be looked up to. They're leading people astray. They're leading people into depression, into bad lifestyles, into unhealthy lifestyles, all kinds of things. And it's a result of freedom of speech.
And they need someone to tell them, like,
again, they need an angel sitting on the shore to say, this is good, this is bad.
Yeah.
Freedom.
And people always think that sounds like very
so controlling.
So controlling. But like, honestly, like, how controlling is it to like have clean air?
The scripture says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. It's not like control. It's everybody's happy because the people that shouldn't be talking aren't talking, the people that should be are, and good things are just happening right here.
It's cringy that, like, you don't want to hear someone talking out of their lane.
Right.
Like, no one wants to hear that, you know what I mean? So,
like, if you don't know about it, don't talk about it.
I think an angel is a perfect solution for something like that.
Yeah. The Prophet Brother said, there are good principles in cancel culture that could be used effectively and justly in a good government. So if you have a good governing system, then there's things that are right about it. And then there's things that are, and then obviously, I mean, I think freedom of speech has been looked on as such a positive thing, such a positive American thing. Well, it can be. It's not always, right?
Like same as democracy. It can be super fun.
That's a whole nother talk. That's a whole nother talk.
I was glad I said it.
Well, thank you all for being here again with us today. You know what time it is. Peace, love, and hair grease.